Hey guys, Anthony 4x4 Diesel. This is smoke on startup. There's been a few people lately I've been seeing around the Facebook groups still asking and talking about smoke on startup. So we'll have a bit of a chit chat about smoke. I think we've got some other videos out there talking about this, and basically, yeah, there wasn't any smoke on startup on this one, was there? That's right, just thought we'd start the video that way so you get the picture. Now, so yeah, lots of people asking, and putting videos up, it's just, it's kind of like arms in the air. It's like, I suppose, yeah, they've just come along and they just want to ask this question. I suppose they've done no research. I'm just trying to get my head around it because we've explained it, we just need to direct them. All the information is there on this YouTube channel as to why diesels blow smoke, and generally the Prado Hilux 1KD is what we specialise in, so specific to that, and these are the vehicles we're talking about. So, smoke on startup. Okay, so if you've got a new car or a fairly new engine, a fairly new 1KD or whatever, we'll sort of talk a bit in general. Well, we can't really, can we? Because other brands of vehicles blow smoke. So, not all of them, but we're not going to be specific. So let's just we'll talk 1KD. We'll call it 1KD, right? So your 1KD, when and why does it blow smoke? Okay, smoke on startup, this one is mainly. Because people have been putting videos up, even though I did a video not that long ago that explained all the different smoke situations. So search my channel, smoke, or why does it blow smoke, diesel smoke, or anything like that, and you'll get all that information. But we'll put this one out there. If you start up, if it's fairly new, 1KD, and you start the engine cold, and it's a daily startup, you're probably not going to see any smoke. You probably shouldn't see any smoke. Now, when I say shouldn't, it varies a little bit, okay? So, we'll just quickly touch on the main reasons why diesels in general blow smoke, and that is a blocked air filter or dirty MAF sensor, which could be a combined problem, it could be one or the other, or a bit of both. Blocked fuel filters can cause engines to blow smoke as well. The other main reason is really your injectors, right? Your injectors just aren't working right, okay? That's one of your biggest traditional. If everything else is right, basics, and that's where we're talking air filter, MAF sensor, if that's right, then most likely, in most cases, it's going to be injectors, or it's just a crappy design engine and fuel system that blows smoke anyway. Now, with these Toyotas, with the Denso injectors, they're actually a really awesome design because they run really cleanly, quietly, and they get a lot of they get a lot of power and torque out of the engine. So, and that's kind of part of the problem because it is still a small engine in a big truck. But we're not going to go there. This is smoke on startup. So, if those things are right, your air and your MAF and everything's right, and you're starting the vehicle daily and it's at reasonable kilometres and it's had really good service, I'll be surprised if you're going to see any smoke. Okay, so you shouldn't see any now. Next level, you see a little bit of smoke, like a tiny little puff. Well, you're kind of going to get that. It's a cold engine. It can be a bit of fuel, right? It can be, if it's a little bit white, it can be injector that's leaking a little bit. If it's black, it's probably going to be running rich, you know what I mean, sort of thing. The engine's cold, that's what more likely you're going to see. But if you've got that kind of bluey, what looks like oil, I don't know if you remember the old cars, old engines, you used to drive around in front of you, blowing smoke, pouring out blue smoke, like, if you, I think the last one I saw was about a decade ago. Where was I? I think I was might have been down at the Kmart Tour and Auto getting tyres or something along those lines, or was I getting fuel next to Kmart? No, it wasn't that, I was just getting fuel. And I think it was Kmart that they had a car out on a road test. I think the customer, not their fault, but customer might have tried to do their own service, put too much oil in, overfilled it, fill up the engine with oil. And it was pouring out smoke, so they drained some oil out, but then they had to drive it because you've kind of like filled up your engine literally, all your manifolds and everything. So, and they're driving around, it's just pouring out blue smoke. Anyway, if you see that sort of blue smoke, that's oil. So most likely causes of that sort of smoke could be your injector seats leaking. That's one of the most common causes on the 1KD. And the common causes of that are either they've never been out, never been changed, poor quality, non-genuine parts or procedures have been used to replace them when they've been out. So basically crap workmanship, okay? So it either hasn't been touched or it hasn't been touched right, okay? So don't just leave it alone, but leave it alone if you don't know what you're doing. That's where all these other videos, as I said, it all kind of like comes together like a big jigsaw puzzle, okay? But you already understand that if you've seen the other videos. So smoke on startup, that's the main one. You know, if it's really bad, sort of plumes of blue smoke, you know, that's probably what, if it's blue, generally that's what it's going to be. Now, if you've had a situation where you've had a problem with your air filter, it's not sealed properly, you've got a lot of dust in there, or someone had it apart, the clips weren't on, I don't know, the boot split or not on the turbo properly because someone worked on it, and you've had dust in your engine, then of course it can wear the engine, it can wear the rings, and then it may burn some oil, and that can be, you know, so there's a number of different causes, right? So, but that's very rare that happens, but it can be a cause. So that's why I say if everything else is right, if your air filter's right, and your engine hasn't been damaged, and the way you can tell, you could possibly take your air intake duct off, the one from the airbox that goes down, and have a look into the turbo. To be honest, you're always going to see a little bit of dust. Not always, I shouldn't say that. Often you'll see a little bit of dust in there, because a little bit of dust does get through on a lot of engines. So don't go, oh wow, there's dust there, I need a new engine, because it might not be that, you know. It's just, it can be hard to tell. You need to do all these checks anyway and check it out. You know, you can do compression tests, and compression tests can come back fine, and your engine's still burning oil, stuff like that. So there's a lot of, that's why you're best to just do the right service and maintenance, and then you can avoid these problems. Now, one of the biggest ones, as I've touched on already, injectors. Now, all these people, they're posting up these videos, oh, any idea what's causing this? And they start it up and give it a rev, and you can hear the big exhaust, run, run. So they spend all the money on modifications and super specials, at super wherever, and you haven't done your injectors, mate, you know? So you're burning up fuel, it's costing you money in fuel, it's not good for the environment, it's not good for people's health, it's not good for your right foot because you're not getting the power and torque, the desired levels it's meant to get. So you're not really happy, and you're not happy because it's blowing smoke. So leave the exhaust alone. I don't know what it is, but I've seen Hiluxes with decent engines, with new or near new injectors, and with an exhaust on they can blow a bit of smoke. So there is a contributing factor there. Not necessarily always, but quite common when a Hilux comes in and it's got an exhaust and it's going to blow a bit of smoke, right? So of course you can have problems with the turbo. Again, very rare on the Toyotas that the internals of the turbo, the seal's gone and there's oil in the intake, but it can be that. So there's a number of different things. Number one, smoke on startup is going to be, you've got your old flogged injectors in. So when I see these posts, I read on, and if someone hasn't asked, so I read the replies. I do. If I've got time, I quickly skim through, read the replies, because you know you got to be careful. Sometimes I haven't got time. I'll just put my reply if I've got one, and just keep moving, whatever. And someone will go, oh yeah, you know, because you'll ask a question, oh, how many Ks have had the injectors done? And they say, didn't you read the replies? I've seen that happen to people. That's why I'm trying careful to read replies and stuff. So usually it's high kilometres and they haven't had the injectors done. So that's your biggest cause of smoke on startup. And it can be a combination of those seats leaking. If it's really bad, that blue smoke, or if it's just a bit of black smoke, it's probably your injectors and you know they're just not working right and over fueling. You can get either of those on startup, and obviously if you give it a rev when it's cold, so this is I suppose the next level I was going to get to. If the vehicle's done, I don't know, 150,000 Ks, you know, it's a 150 with full DLC injectors, it's probably not too bad, but you might get a bit of smoke out of it. And as I said in the other video, you need to be aware about the EGR system and all that exhaust gas recirculation that's coming back out as well, because that can be built up in the EGR cooler, goes into your intake through your, and it can kind of come out looking like smoke too. That's more when you give it to it, you know, if you're driving at night and you know that smoke you see in your rear view at night. Well, I don't know about it, my cars don't do that, but so hopefully that tells you something. Okay, your vehicle really shouldn't be blowing any smoke. Your Toyota, I shouldn't say your vehicle, your Toyota really shouldn't be blowing any smoke. You know, you should be driving at night and you've got a car behind you, headlights and that, and you should be able to give it a fair squeeze. Maybe not flat out, if you floor it you might get a little bit, but you should be able to accelerate away quite nicely without revving the nuts off it, you know, sort of 3 grand sort of thing, without seeing any or much smoke in that rearview mirror in those lights. You know, the lights kind of light it up. You know what, most people know what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, try it out sometime. I'm kind of assuming people know what I mean, because a lot of people have seen that ugly cloud of kind of like, we'll call it a soot box, because that EGR cooler, it's a box that gets full of soot, and if you cruise around all the time 1500 2000 revs or so like you should, and then you go on the freeway on ramp and give it to it a bit, and you sort of give it the 3,500 rev blow off, that's where you're going to get it, because it's more red. It's sort of going to blow it through, right? So that's what's going on there, blowing the cobwebs out, which you don't need to do too much of that on a diesel. Diesels don't rev. You know, I've seen some other people's posts recently as well, saying, oh, I'd go with the Italian tune-up, because I think we did a video called the Italian tune-up. But you need to understand. I think it's explained. Maybe watch the video, watch that one as well. Petrols, it's good to give it a rev every now and then. There have been some symptoms on other cars with different cars over the years where driving them too slow has caused some issues, and you may want to do things like clean the throttle body on those as well, and maybe do that first, perhaps. With the diesels, not usually too bad. Separate issues. The issues are that EGR mess, really. You just kind of don't want it there. Would be ideal, but I think there's a solution for that. 7 mil something. I don't know. Anyway, guys, I hope that's covered it pretty thoroughly. I like to be thorough. I don't know what else I can say. Smoke on startup. Are your injectors done? Is my first question. If you roll here to the roll and you say, hey, Anth, I've got a bit of smoke on startup, I'm going to say, okay, what year, how many Ks have the injectors been done? Okay. Now, depending what that answer is, I'm going to say, well, put a new air filter in it, clean the MAF sensor, depending how dirty it is. If it looks, dirty at all, you can't always tell by looking at it, whatever they are. It's just one of those things, right? So, and if it's better, then happy days, that was it. If you go, okay, all the filters are clean, everything's in peak condition, everything looks right, we'll plug in, we'll have a look at the injectors. That may tell us something, but quite often it won't. As explained in other videos, you can't just rely on diagnostics. I'm going to say, look, next thing I want to do is throw a set of injectors at it, because that's what causes all this blowing smoke. And that nails two things. It nails the injectors, they're brand new, fresh and working right, and also the seats that need to be changed periodically. They happen to be due at the same time on the 1KDs. As you know, my recommendation is about the 170k mark. Doesn't mean you can't do them at 150 or 200, but thereabouts. It just depends on time also. 7 years is the guide. 7 years, 170, whichever comes first. You might do 250,000 Ks in 4 years. That's fine as well, but just keep an eye on that oil pickup, because that's your telltale sign if those seats are leaking. I don't need to push you to get your injectors done sooner or later. I'll just try and give you the right advice, whatever you like. But if it's getting toward that time or overdue, I'm certainly going to say injectors. So that's the answer to the video, guys. Injectors. If you've got a good engine and you've done your injectors and you've got a clean filter and you're still getting a bit of smoke, well, maybe some of them just do that. If it's a small amount, I wouldn't be too worried about it. The other thing you could do your suction control valve. Definitely, if you've got that short one, I've said in other videos, it's rubbish. You can search that video. It's called This Is Rubbish or Rubbish Rate. Just search rubbish on my channel and you'll find it. The short SCVs are rubbish. You could do that. Then you've got your fuel pressure right, you've got your injection right, you've got your seats right, you've got your intake, your air, your sensors, everything right. Change your MAP filter as part of that. It's running in peak condition. It shouldn't blow any smoke. But it might just put a little bit out when it's cold, because guess what? That's an engine, you know what I mean? As they get older, we don't see a lot of problems with valve stem seals or valve guides and things like that with these engines. I think they're really good. But as they get older, if it's got a 300,000 or a 400,000, a 3 or 4 in front of those 6 digits, then I wouldn't be surprised if you get a little bit of smoke on startup, okay? So this is why you stick around to the end, because we're just going to the next level again. So if you've got more Ks, you might get a little bit on startup. But then you might not either, right? A lot of them don't. So I like to say generally they don't do that, right? Now, the other thing is smoke on startup. I'm getting distracted by a phone ringing in the background. 300,000 or 400,000 Ks. So when you might get a little bit, the other thing that can happen is if it's sitting for a period of time, okay? If it's sitting for a period of time, then some small amount of oil may run down those valve guides, valve stem seal sort of thing, right? Even though there might not be a problem with it. I'm not saying you need to go and change your seals, but they might be just not 100% anymore. They're damn good, these Toyota things. Anyway, I'll just say be aware of it. Doesn't matter, look at your oil level. If you're not using oil, then you don't need to worry about it, okay? So it could be that, and I have noticed it when parking a vehicle for a number of days that's got the higher Ks. Sometimes we've got 120s here or whatever for days or a week or whatever, just sitting there. Someone's dropped it off and gone for a week and pick it up then, whatever. And you start it to move it or to work on it. You might work on it a little bit one day or another, whatever the case may be. And when you start it up cold after a couple of days, you might get a little puff of smoke, right? So That's kind of normal as well, so don't panic about that. Now there's one other thing to keep in mind, and that is if you've done over 300,000 Ks and you haven't changed your injectors, and you start to see some smoke and you've done everything, and then you change your injectors and there's still smoke there, well, there's always a chance that that crack started. Okay, it's well documented by Toyota that injectors are the cause of the damage to the pistons. Okay, it's in their own. You know, I saw a post, I think recently, in a particular group. It's a bit dodgy anyway, but a lot of people seem to think, oh, you know, there's a problem with the pistons. You know, it's just the pistons. They're just weak, and it's just luck. You know, well maybe, but why did Toyota themselves, in two separate documents, talk about injectors being improved to prevent wrong combustion? What's wrong combustion then if it's just a piston? Anyway, so that crack may have started. It's not like a switch. It doesn't just go boom, everything's fine 1 minute, and then bing, you've got a hole in your piston. It doesn't happen like that. It happens slowly, metal fatigue, right? So when things aren't working right, that crack could have started, right? And it could stay like that a long time, especially after you change injectors and everything's working right. And if you're not towing, if you're using the vehicle really well, and it could have that crack there, it could be about to go. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to watch those injectors, in my opinion and my experience. That's what I've found. So if you've got a slight crack there, perhaps that's something that's contributing to that bit of smoke on startup. You know, perhaps. I'm just putting it out there as a maybe, something to think about. Anyway, guys, that'll do for this video. 17 minutes. Hope you got something out of that. That's to help with what's that, smoke on startup. If you haven't already, if you think I've earned your subscription, please subscribe and turn the bell on so you don't miss that next notification for the next bit of important information. And if you can, give us a thumbs up so we know we're giving the right content in the videos. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.